All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher. We're going to talk NBA with Drew today, and then we're going to get into some French Open, men's and women's side, talk about the outright markets. But Drew, let's start off with the Boston Celtics, who saved their season last night. And so last night, well, firstly, after Game 3, I backed the Celtics 25-1 to win the title, 20-1, 18-1. We talked about the reasons why earlier in the week, and I couldn't watch the first half last night because I was at dinner, but I messaged a friend who's also on the Celtics, being like, "How do we look?" And he said, "Not good. They're playing harder, but the process is still all broken. They can't do anything in the half court. There's no penetration. It's just side to side around the perimeter, just taking threes. And even if we eke this one out, it doesn't bode well for the rest of the series." Get home, watch the second half, and they find something in the second half where they render their half-court issues kind of meaningless because they're just getting every defensive stop and playing in transition, and then they're making their threes in the half-court. And so I think the lesson with this series is, and look, the Heat are probably still going to win the series, and we'll get into that. But the lesson is that even when things look hopeless, these series, they are amorphous and they take different forms. And all that really matters is that you keep eking out results to give yourself a chance to find something later in the series. You just need to keep breathing until you find something. Do you think the Celtics found something last night?
I was told the series was over, Jay. What are you talking about? We're on to Heat Nuggets. I was pretty convinced by a lot of people saying this. No, it's the Celtics have definitely found something. They found heart. I'll tell you this much. If you didn't watch the first half of that game, your commentary from your buddy was correct. It did not look good. The Celtics were playing extremely poorly. The degree of turnovers, particularly from the ball handlers, was startling. But they made up for it with inspired offensive rebounding. Completely out of nowhere. All of a sudden, the Celtics were getting every offensive board, and they were, beating the Heat, clearly in the second chance points department. Al Horford, finally found his shot, and one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA this season. All of a sudden, he found his range after having a miserable month of May so far. So it felt not bad, I think, being only down 6 at halftime. Like, I can't explain it any better than, like, if you had Celtics any position at all, you felt like, okay, we're within 10, they have a chance. And and then I definitely would, hat tip to, the way that, some of the adjustments they made at halftime. The Heat, I think, largely stubbed their own toe in a lot of respects with some of their shot selection. It looked pretty clear that a lot of those players felt like, oh, I am God. I can make every contested three. This is, who cares about quality of shot here? We don't need to make the extra pass. I'll just take this heat check three. And eventually they stopped going in. And we were kind of expecting some regression at some point. It happened pretty aggressively in the second, third, and fourth quarters last night. And now we have ourselves a series because Celtics are huge favorites to win Game 5. I don't know that I am running to the window to lay 300. I'm certainly not. I'm much happier with my Celtics series position than I would be laying that price. Similarly with -8, like these, I think we've learned pretty clearly that every game, home court does not matter a ton in this series. Road team has won 3 out of 4. And, I think it's going to take find another gear, figure out another couple of wrinkles because, what the Celtics did to kind of snap out of their funk offensively last night didn't necessarily look sustainable. But at the same time, that if they can play from ahead and if they are, doing that, if they are playing that inspired, particularly off the boards, then, the Heat are going to find themselves in some distress if they're not making those luck box threes. And so I think Celtics ultimately win Game 5. And I'm going to have a long, hard think between now and tomorrow about taking the 8 points with the Heat as a, middle shot there. And I look over 216 a little bit just in the, in the realistic expectation that the Celtics offense continues to cook. You could see like a 120, 108 type of game in Game 3. In Game 5. And I may be getting way over my skis here, but I have, I would love a game 6 total to open up in the 216 range. That would be just tremendous to bet an under. And, I think we're a long way from the finish line here.
Yeah, I think the Celtics, it's weird. Like last night, I think they showed that I still think they have the highest ceiling of any team, because when they play defense like that, I think that makes them the best team. It's just they don't get to that level consistently. The only really 2 times that I've seen it were weirdly the second half of game 4 against Philadelphia, where the Celtics ended up losing that game, but defensively, like they broke Joel Embiid in that game to the point where PJ Tucker is having to give him a pep talk on the court because the Celtics defense has just broken the MVP. And then last night in the second half, when Grant Williams is blocking Jimmy Butler, stumping him and grabbing the ball. And I don't think the Celtics half-court offense, I think now we've got 11 games of sample against this Heat team across the 2 Eastern Conference Finals, that the Celtics just aren't going to have that much success in the half court against the Heat, because Tatum and Brown, they just struggle so much dribbling against this team and getting dribble penetration and passing and making the right reads, because the Heat defense is so connected, it's so smart, and I just don't think that they're going to have amazing success. At the same time, if you've got Tatum and Brown and shooting, it does give your half court offense some sort of floor. And that floor is going to be enough if they play defense like that and they get out in transition, because people always talk about how the Celtics are more talented than the Heat. What they really mean, I think, is that the Celtics are bigger and stronger and faster than the Heat, and they can assert that on defense and in transition and in semi-transition, and they started to do that last night for the first time in the series. And also the Heat just didn't shoot that well. And I think this is a reminder that, everyone after game 3 is like, well, the Celtics, they're just a broken team. Like, they gave up. Like, I think a lot of the times we just conflate mental state with just shooting luck and shooting variance. And the fact that, the Heat came into last night shooting 20 of 34 on wide open threes in the series, and the Celtics were 14 of 43. And if you just kind of flip the percentages, then the Celtics are up 2-1 or 3-0. So I think that a lot of that is just and also, I think another thing to remember is that people really overreact to really emotionally charged results, because to me, the Celtics title price after game 3, the biggest parallel I can think of to that is the Ohio State national championship price after they got blown out at home by Michigan, where that leapt up to 40-1 when it should have been like 10-1, because people just could not believe the result, and they couldn't believe that the Celtics went down 0-3. Whereas if you just math out the money lines, you're never going to get close to 25-1 for the Celtics title. And also, it's 3 games, and the first 2 games were coin flips that could have gone either way. And yeah, they let go of the rope in game 3, but you just can't say with complete confidence that the team is just totally done, that they've let everything out there. And now all of a sudden, it's a series, and I think that. I mean, what do you think game 6 will be if the Heat do lose game 5?
Celtics -4. I'm not joking. I really do think it'll, because the wave is already coming. It's coming, and it's going to be strong. I can barely imagine what game 7 would open. I hope we see it just so we have like a historical marker. I would like to know what it ends up being, because this entire series has been goldfish brain. Like, people forgetting, what have I seen most recently? That's what's going to happen. And that happens in the playoffs for sure, especially when there's only one series to really pick apart. And yeah, I mean, to some of your notes, like, the Celtics letting go of the rope in game 3, it wasn't an elimination game. Who cares? Like, they were not winning that game. If they want to save their bolts for game 4, that is fine. It does not. Is that a broader indication of the state of the team? A couple other just quick notes that I have for you, just to file in the back of your brain. Joe Mazzulla figured out timeouts. He now knows what a timeout is. That's it. I'm not joking. This is an important development, Jay. Maybe not even for this series, but if they get to a finals, this matters. He now knows when to take a timeout to arrest a momentum swing. And Jaylen Brown has the yips from the free throw line. I don't know if you saw. I don't know if you watched back that first half, but he had a couple uh-ohs from the free throw line there. I thought the Celtics exercised an enormous amount of patience in the first half of the game because a couple of key they were a little testing the refs in terms of aggressive defense and got some early fouls, but they didn't like kind of lose their minds. And, I think everybody kind of taking 2 fouls into the locker room at halftime, they were like, okay, we can be aggressive again to start the second half. They're going to let us play at some point. And I think the letting them play was a huge factor of them ultimately having success defensively last night. I think, I really think, some players around the margins are going to decide this series one way or the other. And to your point about the Celtics are the more talented team, yes, but in a lot of ways, it's just name recognition, really. I mean, the quality of play you've gotten from a guy like Caleb Martin this series has been incredible. And, he may have just taken a meaningful step forward in his progression. And we don't know who he is, whereas you know exactly who Marcus Smart is. He's the reigning defensive player of the year, Jay. So it's much more about, I think, just name recognition and I don't know. I think the Celtics are still very, very, very live in this series. Pre-series price for a sweep was plus 350-ish. Pre-series price for the Heat to win the series was plus 400. Yeah. So, I don't think we should be surprised if we get to a Game 7.
No, absolutely not. And also, like, people penciling in Game 6, like, Boston can absolutely lose Game 5. It would be incredibly Celticsy to lose Game 5. The Heat might just shoot well and it's over. And I don't think this Boston team is good enough or playing well enough to necessarily withstand another Heat outlier shooting performance, because I don't think the gap between the teams is big enough for them to do that. But, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a fun series. At least we have some basketball. I don't think at the current prices that there are any real futures bets on these markets. Like, I think the Celtics should be plus 230, plus 250 true price to win the series. If you kind of math out the money lines, if you think it's going to be like -8 times, I think it'll be more like Celtics -1 in Game 6. But, these prices are just being pulled out of hats. The fact we go from Celtics -4.5 Game 3 to Heat -1.5 Game 4. So I don't know what the Game 6 price is going to be. If it gets to Game 7, you would think it would be -8.5, -9.
I got one fun one for you.
Yeah.
How about this for a little defense on a Celtics futures price? Heat money line parlayed into Nuggets ship.
Wow, because
you saw the I'll figure fine, but you know where the Nuggets. You saw the Nuggets price kind of come back to earth. Yeah, that was what we were talking about 250 yesterday. If this is
290,
290, 290. Okay, so if this is Nuggets Heat. I mean, my fair price there is almost it's like -350, -360. So I think you're if the Heat win, holding Nuggets -210 is enormously plus EV. Finding a way to parlay those two, I think is kind of fun, but you got to be a little creative.
Yeah. I last night did outline that, like, I'm extremely confident the Nuggets would beat the Heat in the finals, and you can't, you can never dismiss Jimmy, Bam, and Spo, which been fraught with peril this playoffs, but I would be stunned if they beat the Nuggets. If it's Celtics Nuggets, I got no idea what happens. At that point, I've got no idea what happens in that series. I think that series is too close to pick, but we're going to need to get there in the first place. All right. Before we talk about the French Open, a reminder to download the RotoWorld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in the App Store today. All right, let's go to Paris, to Roland Garros, the French Open women's side, which is a lot more interesting than it seemed like it would be 3-4 weeks ago, where Iga Swiatek at one point was like -160 in the market. Now she's a lot closer to even money, coming off a loss and now a little bit of an injury concern. And now it looks like, well, there's certainly 3 ladies at the top in Swiatek, Sabalenka, and Rybakina. But I wouldn't write off Krejcikova either, and also wouldn't necessarily write off potentially a long shot. Because this is more wide open than it looked like it was going to be. What's your breakdown of the field?
So Iga should still be your number one with a bullet here. As even though she hasn't really picked up the hardware on this, she won Stuttgart, but she didn't win Madrid. She didn't win Rome. In fact, she got beat by Sabalenka and Rybakina via retirement. It doesn't, so she doesn't have the momentum coming into this tournament that she has had in years past. However, you kind of break down the hold break statistics so far on clay this year. Iga is holding serve better than she was last year when she was absolutely unbeatable on clay, and her break numbers aren't that far off. So really all I can tell you is this isn't necessarily about Iga not being as good as she was last year. It's much more about the top of the field kind of coming to her and closing that gap. And we saw it with the quality of play at the Australian Open between Sabalenka and Rybakina in that final was superlative. That was some of the best women's tennis I've ever seen in my life. It was amazingly good. And they have obviously closed the gap on Iga. And so the pre-draw kind of handicap here comes down entirely to who gets, really just, can you make a bet on Sabalenka at 6-1? Really is where I'm at. Iga's going to be the 1 seed on the top. Aryna's going to be the 2 seed on the bottom. The Rybakina draw is going to be fantastically interesting because she gets drawn into the top half. Then all of a sudden, Iga's win equity gets slashed because that head-to-head in a quarterfinal or a semifinal would be a very, very good contest. My fair price on Iga versus Rybakina in the conditions expected at Roland Garros, if Iga is dealing with no injuries whatsoever, my fair price is Iga minus 275. So it's not that outrageous to think that Rybakina could beat her head-to-head at Roland Garros. My fair price between Iga and Sabalenka in the Roland Garros conditions is plus 190 for Sabalenka. So we're talking about like more than a 30% chance that she has that she can pull off a head-to-head win. So basically, I'm at the point now where I'm waiting patiently to find out if Rybakina is on the top or the bottom of the draw. And as soon as I know, I'm either firing Sabalenka or I'm firing Iga, frankly, because minus 110 is a good price if she only has to play one of those other two women. Iga, I will note, is not, that she has some benefits of the scheduling at the French Open in terms of not exacerbating the injury. She, best of 3 tennis. You get a day off between matches. She's had an entire week to regroup from Rome. And by the way, week 1, she's going to be going up against some qualifiers and some women that she's going to be able to beat 6-0, 6-0. So she shouldn't have to sweat too hard in week 1. It's just all going to come down to what kind of physical state she's in week 2 and who does she have to go through. If she has to go through Rybakina and Sabalenka, then minus 110 is a bad price. If she can go through only one of those two, then it's a good price. So that's kind of like the macro setting. Everyone in that middle class, including your girl Krejcikova, has not been playing especially good tennis, and they haven't been playing a lot of tennis on clay. Like there's been a lot of early outs, not a lot of reps, and a lot of these women I think are going to be subject to upsets early on because below that middle class, the long shots, like you mentioned, there are some very, very, very talented teenagers that are coming through qualifying right now who are going to be tough outs. Of course, you remember the U.S. Open where Emma Raducanu went through qualifying and then went on to win a title. There are definitely women that fit that description coming from the Russian contingent and the Czech contingent at this tournament. Women who won juniors here, women who are finalists in juniors here the last handful of years. They are going to be tough outs. So I would say that in general, while there is a big 3 in this year's women's field, the likelihood that you have, some relative unknown go on a sun run is not out of the question at all. And I think you could see a lot of these kind of middle class contenders go by the wayside before we even get to week 2.
Yep. I'm going to throw some names at you, some of the longest shots, not necessarily the teenagers, but the bigger prices, because I do think there is this idea of the inevitability of Iga at Roland Garros, which is, justified in a way, but also it's not like she's 110 and it's not like Nadal French because 1, she's got an injury thing at the moment. And then 2, it's just best of 3 sets. It's not best of 5. So there's more variance. There can be a more flukish result. So some of the longer shots that I've bet recently. Ostapenko, 40-1. Vondrasova, 60-1. Kasatkina, 120-1. And then there's some Krejcikova at 20-1. I think at the Australian Open, I was calling her Rybakina, and you were saying Rybakina, and now we flipped. So we have to figure that out at some point. Renee told us the correct answer, and one of us has messed it up. It's unclear who. Real pick market there. What do you think of those long shots?
On the Rybakina pronunciation, on the WTA website, they have a little audio clip of every woman saying their own name, and she says it 2 different ways. I've listened to it 100 times to try to get it right, and she's inspiring some of this uncertainty, Jay. It's coming from the top. I like some of the prices you got for sure. You're not getting anywhere close to, would you say 50 on Ostapenko?
40.
40. That's not getting anywhere close to 40. You're not getting anywhere close, or you probably shouldn't be getting anywhere close to 120 on Kasatkina. Kasatkina's break percentages in this clay season have been outstanding. Like, she is definitely not going to be an easy pushover. Her serve is kind of the key problem. But if I'm shopping long shots, Jay, I'm going way further down the board. There are two Russian qualifiers who are coming through right now, and of course they have to get into the field first. But they're sisters, the Andreevas. There is a 16-year-old named Mira Andreeva, and I believe her sister, it starts with an E, maybe Elena Andreeva. They are steamrolling good competition right now in qualifying, and they are going to be extremely tough outs. And you could probably get 500 to 1,000 to 1 type of prices on them right now if people aren't paying attention to some of the lower, bottom part of the board. Similarly, right now on PointsBet, I'm looking at it 500 to 1 for Elisabetta Cocchiaretto. Okay, so first of all, she's Italian, and would you believe it? Of every woman that's played on clay in 2023, she has the highest break percentage of any player. And if you add hold percentage and break percentage together, which is a decent indicator of how what current form is for a given player. Now she's not playing the same level of competition as Iga or Sabalenka, but she is a top 6 right now in hold break on clay in 2023 so far. So I think she should be way shorter than 500 to 1 to win this title, and I'm very much hoping she gets drawn into the weak quarter of the draw, because if you were paying attention at the beginning, if you're out of Iga's quarter, if you're out of Sabalenka's quarter, and then if Rybakina ends up in her own quarter, if you're out of that quarter, then you are very live to make it to a semifinal here. And so I think really the name of the game is look at the draw, circle that quarter, and let's find some weak shots. And then I want the best player on the opposite side of the draw, because there's just going to be a natural imbalance with 2 of the big 3 being on either the top or the bottom.
Okay, well, I can't bet on Italian tennis players anymore after what Jannik Sinner has done to me and my family and my spirit over the past couple of years, but that's okay. We'll talk about Jannik on the men's side, but first a reminder that Sunday morning means MLB leadoff. Watch exclusive live games all season long on Peacock. This week we are featuring a powerhouse matchup as the Los Angeles Dodgers take on the Major League Baseball leading Rays in Tampa. Coverage begins at 11 a.m. Eastern this Sunday. All right, French Open men's side, fulfilling the historic Rafael Nadal role on the odds board is Carlos Alcaraz this year at plus 125. Novak Djokovic, who does not look like Novak Djokovic at the moment, he is plus 225. Holger Rune is plus 900. Tsitsipas, uninspiring, 12-1. Medvedev playing on pretty well on clay relative to what he's done in the past. He's 12-1. And then your man, Jannik Sinner, bane of my 14-1. What's your breakdown here?
I like Sinner for this tournament. No, I think the top 2 are backwards. There seems to be this kind of sentiment around the tennis betting community that the torch has been passed from Nadal to Alcaraz. Maybe, but Alcaraz has a long way to go to get the reps in best of 5 slam tournament setting compared to the likes of the Novak Djokovic's of the world, who has won 2 2 titles here at Roland Garros and whatever, 21 or 22. I've lost count at this point. And you mentioned it. Djokovic hasn't looked as strong as he has in years past in the clay run-up. He has won no titles. He has gone out embarrassingly in 2 of the 3 tournaments that he's played in. And I would say there is cause for concern beyond just his form on the court in the nature of how he's dealing with his elbow injury. There's a little bit of tennis elbow creeping into the old Novak Djokovic elbow, and that's affected his serve. It's affected his forehand. It's affected his ability to put spin on the ball, and all of those things are concerns. That said, we had the same sort of pearl clutching about Djokovic's health with the injury he was dealing with to, I believe, his hamstring or his quad heading into the Australian Open. And I think he won that tournament dropping 1 set, and it really didn't even feel like that much of a sweat, if we're being honest. Like, that was a absolute, cakewalk for him. So, he's the experience matters when it comes to slam tennis. The ability to navigate best of 5 on the men's side is important. And so Djokovic's experience, I think, should put him still at the top of the board in terms of likelihood to win. Am I running to the window to bet plus 225? No. I think that's probably close. It's in the ballpark. And I think your better bet for betting Djokovic in this tournament is just to prey on the fact that the market doesn't expect much from him here and look for opportunities to bet him in match if he goes down a set or even 2 sets, particularly if it's against one of the up-and-comers, the Alcarazes, the Runes, the Sinners, right? He still has the mental advantage over these guys, as we put clearly on display 2 years ago in the final when he went down 2 sets to love to Tsitsipas and then came roaring back. I think that is kind of the name of the game. He likes to let the matches come to him. He wants to use his endurance to his advantage. And so I'm mostly going to look for live betting opportunities on Djokovic along the way, as opposed to really getting heavily involved in the plus 225 range. Now, I did kind of mention I do think Sinner should be in the top 4 in terms of price, but I don't love the value you're getting with the current bet on him. His hold break stats have been outstanding on this clay swing, but he's dealing with a little bit of an injury situation as well, and he also has yet to solve best of 5 tennis, even though he was the best player at the U.S. Open. And then you mentioned Medvedev as well. Medvedev would be my 3rd choice for this championship. I can't believe I'm saying those words, considering what my opinion of his clay game at the beginning of the 2023 calendar. But he has completely reshaped what he can do on clay, and he is much, much more dangerous than he ever has been for this particular tournament. So I think giving him a realistic shout, especially because he's now the 2 seed. I don't know. So I'm not sure if you saw that, but Medvedev won the Rome title, which vaulted him into the number 2 seed for this tournament. So he is on the bottom half of the draw. He is the only player that will be opposite Carlos Alcaraz, the 1 seed. Djokovic is still kind of floating. He could be the 3. He could get, he could be the top seed in the 3rd quarter. He could be the top seed in the 2nd quarter. We do not know. If he gets drawn into the 2nd quarter, that makes Medvedev's price at 12-1 very wrong, in my opinion. This is another big 3-ish situation where you have 3 players with slam quality in Djokovic with the number 1 with a bullet, Alcaraz and Medvedev in the 2nd tier, in my opinion. And so again, if Alcaraz and Djokovic are on the top of the draw and Medvedev is on the bottom, then 12-1 is an absolute, that is grand theft larceny type of pricing. So absolutely we'll be watching carefully in the draw to see if we can capture some Medvedev at price. And then, I think realistically expecting something from Sinner here just based on the quality of tennis. And while Holger Nodskov Vitus Rune has a high place in my heart, and I believe he will be your U.S. Open champion, I think he has been a little bit overbet, as they say. 9-1, 7-1, whatever the price you're finding in the market right now for Rune, it's not a good price. He's played too much tennis, and he's going to eventually win a French Open, I believe, based on the quality of his game on clay. And in fact, we may spend the next 10 years handicapping the French Open, and it might be Alcaraz, Rune. Who you got this year? Who's playing a little bit better? This guy or this guy? Like, that's entirely possible. Could be a 3-way race with them and Jannik Sinner. Who knows? But I think as we currently stand, there's no value in that price.
Yep. All right, well, we've got a wrap, but what I will say to close out about the men's side of the draw is that what everyone thought the Boston Celtics were after Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals, that's what Jannik Sinner is, and he will not be winning this tournament. I cannot get involved with him at that price. I agree that that Medvedev, particularly because Medvedev, his price has plummeted, might be able to still find some stale prices on Daniil and get involved. All right, don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for everyone watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel, and if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.